Welcome to Law Potato, hot legal topics with Idaho Values.
Welcome back to Law Potato, hot legal topics with Idaho Values with Alan Harrison of AlanRHarrisonLaw. Alan helps Idaho families plan for the future with clarity and thoughtful structure. Today, he's joined by estate planning specialist, Jeanna Nance from the AlanRHarrisonLaw team. I'm Leanne Lyon, and today we are talking about supplemental needs trusts in Idaho, how they work, and how they help protect SSI and Medicaid benefits for individuals with disabilities. Welcome back.
Thanks for having us, Leanne.
Yeah, thanks for having us. So, what is a supplemental needs trust, and how is it different from a standard revocable living trust?
So there's different kinds of supplemental needs trusts. There's what we call a first party, and we usually call it a first party special needs trust. And special needs trust and supplemental needs trust, they really stand for the same thing. The difference is whether it's a first party special needs trust or a third party, and sometimes you'll hear a third party special needs trust. We always call them a third party supplemental needs trust. And so the difference between a first party and a third party is a first party special needs trust is created with money from the disabled individual. So if they inherit money and it's directly in their name, or they're a beneficiary on a bank account and that money is coming to them, then in the month that they receive it, it needs to be put into a first party special needs trust so that they don't lose their government benefits. They're the beneficiary of that trust, but they're not the trustee. Someone else is the trustee of that uses the money for their benefit. Any money left in that account when the disabled individual passes away goes first to pay the state for whatever expenses they've given before it goes to other individuals. With a third-party supplemental needs trust, this is a trust that's been created by usually parents for a disabled child. Any money that the disabled child would inherit would go into that trust. Once again, you have a separate trustee that governs that money for the benefit of the disabled child. Assets go into that trust to be used for the benefit of the disabled child. A big difference is when the disabled child passes away, any money left in that trust would go to wherever the people who set up the trust want it to. So if it's parents setting it up for their special needs child, then any money left when the special needs child dies would go where the parents have said, such as to other children, rather than to the state. And so those are the biggest difference between a first party special needs trust and a supplemental needs trust. And they're different from just a regular trust because both the first party and the third party, they protect the assets and they're not a countable asset by the government. And so in both of those, they can continue to receive government benefits without losing their government benefits.
So, why can receiving an inheritance directly affect someone's eligibility for SSI or Medicaid?
It can affect their benefits because the government has a threshold of assets that a person can have of $2,000 in a bank account or any kind of asset. And if they have less than that, then the person is able to stay on their government benefits. And if they were to receive an inheritance and that money went into a bank account like Alan suggested, then they could go over that limit and they would lose their benefit.
So, how does a properly structured supplemental needs trust allow someone to receive support without disrupting those benefits?
They're able to receive support because the money is governed by a trustee that is not them. Usually it's either a family member, a friend, or it could be a commercial institution like a bank or a trust department. And because someone else is governing that money for the benefit of the beneficiary or the special needs child, it's not a countable asset for the special needs child. And the trustee is able to use that money to supplement, not supplant. In other words, to pay for things above and beyond what the government's paying for.
So, who can create a supplemental needs trust? Is it typically parents, grandparents, or others?
Typically, the parents do or the grandparents. It can be anyone who cares for the special needs person and wants to provide for them. But typically, the parents do provide for that trust in their own estate planning, and then it gets funded when they pass on.
So if someone receives money, they can create a first party special needs trust, and that money can be protected so they can continue to receive government benefits. They just name a separate trustee. They can't be the trustee of it, but they can create it.
So, what types of expenses can a supplemental needs trust pay for without interfering with SSI or Medicaid?
A supplemental needs trust can disperse funds to pay for expenses that the government benefits don't pay for. So, something like a vacation or education, anything like that, that they supplement what the government benefits cover.
So, Idaho recently began offering ABLE accounts. How do ABLE accounts compare to supplemental needs trusts, and when might one make sense? One makes sense over the other.
So an ABLE account is where the individual puts money that they have earned, or if they inherit money and it's less than $20,000, then they can put it in an ABLE account also. An ABLE account is the same as a first party and a third party in that it's protected and they don't lose their government benefits. A big difference, though, is that the individual continues to have control over the money if it's an ABLE account. They manage it, they govern it. The expenses that it can be paid for are a lot broader than in a first party special needs trust. And so that's when they would consider using that.
Another thing that you can have both a supplemental needs trust and an ABLE account. And so you might have a supplemental needs trust that's funded with quite a bit of money, and it's pretty large, but you also want to be able to provide for the beneficiary and give them some independence. So you can open an ABLE account and fund the ABLE account from the supplemental needs trust with under $20,000 a year, up to $100,000 into the account. And then the beneficiary has that independence and ability to use those funds for themselves.
Gina, I think Alan said that the ABLE accounts can cover things that the other trusts maybe don't cover or can't cover. You mentioned first party trusts can, for instance, cover travel, but an ABLE account, Alan said, could cover more. What would those more things be?
Yeah, the supplemental needs trusts are limited. They can't supplant things like food or housing. And the ABLE accounts you're allowed to spend on qualified disability expenses, which do include food and housing and other just daily living expenses that you may not be able to use a supplemental needs trust for.
So, Alan, what common mistakes happen when families try to leave money to a loved one with disabilities without using a supplemental needs trust?
So I've had the experience where I had a parent that passed away. They had a special needs child, and she didn't name any beneficiaries on the bank account. And so all of that money was going to come to this child with special needs, and she's going to lose her government benefits. And so we needed to create a first party special needs trust in that month she was going to get it in order to preserve her government benefits. And that's just really not the best time to be thinking about and trying to, first off, be aware to create the trust, and then second off, be creating that trust at the time you're trying to deal with the death of a parent. I've also done presentations at agencies that help families with special needs children, and we talk about this first party special needs trust. And more than once, I've heard the comment from one of the agency members that I wish I had known about that before, because we had an individual inherit a bunch of money. They got disqualified from their government benefits, and then they had to spend down until they qualified again, and then we got back on government benefits. And if they had known about the first party special needs trust, they could have continued to receive the benefits and had this chunk of money to be able to supplement and help them beyond that. And so it's, anytime I hear that, I just think it's just very unfortunate that the individuals aren't aware of what options there are to ensure that the government benefits are preserved.
So, as we wrap up here today, Jeanna, can you share an example of how thoughtful planning with a supplemental needs trust really help preserve stability for a family long term?
Yes. When I was administering trusts, we had a supplemental needs trust that was created when a a little girl was born, and she had some medical injuries at that point, and the funds went into a supplemental needs trust for her, and her dad and had other children too, and her dad was a single father, and he had to move because he had to switch jobs. And when they moved, his income was such that he didn't have the ability to either build or buy a home that had ADA, that was ADA compliant for her. She was in a wheelchair and needed a lot of care. And so when they bought the home, the trust was able to distribute funds out to the contractor to make modifications to that home so that that little girl could feel comfortable in her home. We remodeled the bathroom, put in ramps, widened doors, did a lot of things for her. And it helped with the whole family, that they could have a place to live, that they weren't trying to remodel it on their own with their own funds. We were also able to disperse funds to allow for her to have a swing set, ADA compliant swing set in her backyard, so she could go out there and have a fun time with her siblings. And we also sent them on a vacation, not the whole family, but the trust allows us to pay for her and for her accommodations that she may need. And so it really did allow that family to continue to operate, and not in a good way, and that without that trust, they would have been in, it wouldn't have worked out as well for them.
Wow, that's a really great story. And that's a wrap for today's episode. Audience, if you are planning for a loved one with disabilities, understanding how supplemental needs trusts and other tools work in Idaho can make a meaningful difference. To learn more about how Alan and his team approach special needs planning, visit aharrisonlaw.com. And remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe to the show so you catch the next episode. Thank you, Alan. Great to see you, Jeanna.
Good to
Thank
see
you.
you too.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.